All right, let's get into it. In this explainer, we're tackling the final chapter of James Allen's classic, As a Man Thinketh. And honestly, he saved one of the most practical skills for last. We're talking about serenity. So let's start with this. Have you ever had one of those moments, you lose your cool, and in that exact same instant, you feel like you just gave away all your power? Well, guess what? That feeling, it's not just in your head. Letting our emotions grab the steering wheel is probably the fastest way to hand over our personal strength. So how do we get that power back? Okay, here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to look at why being reactive is such a problem, get a handle on what true serenity actually is, and then get super practical about how you can start building this skill in your own life. Okay, first up, let's really dig into the problem James Allen is pointing to. It's this habit that, for a lot of us, just runs on autopilot in the background of our lives. It's the habit of reactivity, basically letting everything happening outside of us control everything happening inside of us. Allen has this great image for it. He says a mind without a clear purpose is like a ship with no rudder, just drifting. And when we live like that, with our thoughts just kind of floating around, we get tossed about by every little wave of circumstance, right? It leaves us wide open to every bit of worry, fear, and annoyance that comes our way. So, if being reactive is the problem, what's the answer? Well, James Allen calls it serenity. But, and this is key, it's not just about being quiet or trying to avoid all your problems. No, it's way, way more powerful than that. Let's put this in plain English. Serenity isn't about your life suddenly becoming storm-free. That's not realistic, right? It's the skill of being the calm at the center of your own storm. It's this inner self-control that you build piece by piece that lets you stay steady and poised no matter what chaos is happening around you. Okay, this next point is absolutely crucial. We have to understand the difference between being calm and just suppressing your feelings. True calm is not pretending you don't feel anything. That's just suppression. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can do it for a while, but eventually it's going to shoot up to the surface, probably with a lot more force. Real calmness is about acknowledging the feeling, looking at it, and then choosing how you want to respond from a place of strength, not a place of denial. And this right here, this is really the heart of Allen's message. So many of us think power means controlling the world out there, our job, our money, other people. But Allen completely flips that idea on its head. He's saying, look, the real source of power isn't out there. It's in here. It's mastering your own internal world, your own thoughts, your own responses. Okay, so that sounds great, but how do we actually do it? How do we switch from being reactive to being responsive? Well, the trick is to see the chain reaction that's happening in our own minds and find that one little spot where we can step in and choose a different path. Modern psychology actually has a name for this. It's basically a habit loop. Think about it. Something happens, that's the trigger. Instantly, you have an automatic thought about it. That thought creates an emotion, and then you act on that emotion. And the crazy part is, this whole thing can happen in a split second. But the magic, the real point of power, what Allen called right thought, is found in the pause. That little gap, that's your chance to jump in, make a conscious choice, and break the whole chain. I know, this can still feel a little abstract, so let's bring it down to earth with some real, everyday examples. You'll see how this tiny internal shift, just adding that pause, can literally change everything on the outside. Okay, picture this. You're at work, a super urgent email hits your inbox. The reactive brain, it instantly floods with stress, panic mode. But the calm person, they pause. They just take a breath. They see the email not as a disaster, but just as a problem that needs a solution. And then they start to plan. And over time, who do you think becomes known as the reliable one, the leader? It's the person whose inner calm actually influences everyone else for the better. Or what about relationships? We've all been there. A conversation gets heated, and our first instinct is to get defensive, to fight back. But when you're practicing serenity, you pause. You force yourself to listen, not just to figure out your comeback, but to actually understand what the other person is saying. And that little shift, it stops you from saying things you'll regret later. It builds connection instead of just more conflict. And look, this applies 100% to our personal habits. Whether it's that craving for junk food or the pull to procrastinate, again, reactivity is what keeps us stuck in those loops we hate. Serenity is the skill of pausing, seeing that urge come up, acknowledging it, and then choosing an action that actually aligns with who you want to be. It's how we build our character, literally one conscious response at a time. Look, this is not some mystical thing that's only for monks on a mountaintop. Not at all. It is a practical skill, and you can start building it like right now. I'm going to give you a super simple exercise you can use anytime you feel that reactive energy starting to bubble up. It's called the Serenity Reset, and it's so easy. First, you just pause. Stop what you're doing. Second, take one single slow breath in and out. Third, just notice one thing, the feeling of your chair, a sound in the room, anything. And fourth, you just proceed with your day. See? This isn't about some hour-long meditation. It's a tiny little practice that trains your brain again and again to create that crucial space between what happens and how you respond. All right, we've gone over a lot pretty quickly, so before we finish up, let's just do a quick recap of the biggest takeaways. So here are the main things to remember. First, being reactive is just a habit, and you can absolutely change a habit. Second, serenity is a skill you learn with practice. It's not something you're born with or without. It's about self-control, not stuffing your feelings down. And most importantly, that pause, that's where all your power is. So if this was helpful, our journey through James Allen's work is not over. We're going to build on all this in the very next explainer, and of course you can find the entire As a Man Thinketh series right there in our playlist. This all comes back to the central truth of Allen's entire book, that we are the makers of ourselves, simply because we have the power to choose which thoughts we focus on. So as we close this out, I want to leave you with a question to think about. What is the one area of your life, work, relationships, habits, where learning to practice this kind of serenity could make the biggest difference? Where will you start?